Do you ever feel like your life was set on a different course, a path forged in solitude and marked by a separation so profound it aches within your soul? What if I told you that this very separation, this deep chasm between you and your mother, was not an accident, but a divine setup? If that resonates, if it sparks something deep within, then stay with me, because this message is meant for you, a chosen one. This isn't random. This is a calling. God deliberately set you apart, and that pain you felt, it's not pointless. It's part of your divine preparation. What if everything you've gone through was meant to sharpen you, to strengthen you for a higher calling? Don't ignore this. Ask yourself, are you ready to face the reason why God separated you for something greater? You have always sensed the weight of separation, like a chasm that could not be crossed. And perhaps it made you question your place, your value, or even your worth in the eyes of God. But this was never a sign of abandonment. It was a divine design, a deliberate act from the Almighty to carve out a space where He could mold you, unhindered by earthly ties. The absence you felt wasn't an oversight but a form of refinement, a fire through which your soul has been tested. He separated you from your mother not to deny you love but to set you apart for a love far greater than what the world could offer. In that absence, He speaks to you more clearly, more forcefully, drawing you into His purpose, unclouded by distractions. You were never meant to be like everyone else. Your path was always destined to be different. From childhood, when others around you found comfort in the embrace of their mother's care, you may have found yourself standing alone, questioning why you felt the ache of isolation. But isolation was not weakness, it was strength building. It was God's way of teaching you reliance on Him. Like a warrior trained in the wilderness, stripped of comfort so that only the essentials remain, you were being honed for something higher. The very separation you wrestled with has been your spiritual forge. God sees the love you've longed for, the connection you may have envied in others. But that void was filled not by human hands but by divine intention. He needed you to be free from the confines of earthly attachment because your mission goes beyond the typical bonds that tether most people. Your calling requires a different kind of strength, the kind that is not cushioned by constant affirmation or maternal warmth. Instead, you are sustained by the immeasurable, unshakable force of God's love. His hand, unseen by many, has been shaping you in ways that can only be revealed through such separation. Look at the world as a battlefield, and you are a soldier trained in isolation for a war you may not even have known you were fighting. Others may have relied on the comfort of their mothers, but God required you to learn how to fight alone. In the quiet of your isolation, you found Him. In the emptiness left by the absence of a mother's love, you discovered a love that is perfect, without fault, a love that doesn't fade or fail. Your survival in this seeming void has prepared you for a strength others cannot understand, a resilience others cannot match. The separation you've endured is your training ground, not a punishment. It's the sculptor's chisel on the block of marble, cutting away the unnecessary to reveal the masterpiece within. Every moment of distance has been an intentional stroke, carving you into the vessel God needs for His work. It may have felt like a burden, like a weight too heavy to carry, but that burden was always intended to become the wings that lift you higher. God, in His wisdom, has removed earthly comfort to bestow upon you divine purpose. You were never meant to follow the crowd or to be held by the same bonds that hold others. He separated you to sanctify you, to claim you as His own, untainted and unburdened by the world's definitions of love. What you may have seen as absence, God saw as His presence. And what you thought was isolation was your invitation to step into the fullness of who you were always meant to be. God's separation of you from your mother was never an accident. This emotional and relational distance is a deliberate move, a signal that you are chosen. It might feel like you were abandoned or neglected, but what you endured was part of God's refining fire. The conflict, the strained words, the unspoken coldness, they were all tools, like a hammer against stone, breaking away the parts of you that were not meant to remain. In this divine chiseling, He has shaped you into something stronger, something more resilient, something capable of withstanding the storms that will inevitably come. Every argument, every cutting remark, every manipulation was a lesson in standing firm. You were not just hurt, you were sharpened. The battles you've faced with your mother have been some of the fiercest of your life. They were not mere disagreements but cosmic clashes, struggles between what you are called to be and what the world would have you remain. You may have felt the sting of criticism that seemed to have no end, the constant manipulation that twisted your emotions, the emotional sabotage that left you questioning your worth. But these were not random hardships. Each of these wounds was intentional, a part of God's plan to prepare you for something beyond the ordinary. Through these scars, you gained an armor that others do not have. While others may falter under the weight of life's pressures, you have already endured the heat of the furnace, and it has only made you stronger. The question that haunts many is, why? Why did your relationship with your mother seem destined for pain? The answer is simple but profound: God never intended for you to rely on her for your identity. Her presence in your life, with all its toxicity, whether from jealousy or her own unresolved wounds, was never meant to define you. Instead, it was meant to show you the insufficiency of earthly relationships and push you toward something greater, Him. In every moment where you sought her validation and were denied, you were being trained to find your worth in God alone. You were not meant to seek approval from the world or even from family. Your true value comes from your Creator, and through this struggle, He has made sure that you understand that at your core. This separation, this lack of attachment to your family, particularly your mother, is not a mark of failure. On the contrary, it is a sign that you were chosen for a purpose that exceeds the ordinary bounds of human relationships. Others may find themselves tethered to the emotional chains of toxic family ties, bound by expectations and unhealthy dynamics, but not you. God has given you the freedom to walk a different path, to rise above the entanglements that hold others back. The emotional distance you felt is more than just a painful reality, it is a clear indication that you have been set apart for something extraordinary. Through every wound, every tear, every lonely moment, God has been preparing you for a destiny that few can understand, let alone achieve. You are not bound by the limitations of your family. You are chosen, separated for a divine purpose, and that separation is the very evidence of your greatness to come. And for those ready to embrace this calling, the Obsidian Inner Order, powered by Astral Adam, was created for chosen ones like you, those who have faced the deepest wounds and emerged stronger, aligned, and ready to step into their divine calling. If you felt the pain of separation and the weight of finding your identity beyond earthly ties, this is your home. Our community is filled with others who have walked similar paths, ready to connect, share their stories, and uplift you as you rise. In the Star Chamber, you gain exclusive access to uncensored videos, truths so powerful they could never be shown on YouTube, and direct connections with the creators behind Obsidian and Astral Adam. You'll also receive insights from modern manifestation mechanics designed to help you turn your wounds into weapons and your trials into triumphs. There are only a few slots left in the Star Chamber Discord server, reserved for high-caliber chosen ones who are ready to walk in their full power. Don't wait, the link is in the description. Click now to join the Obsidian Inner Order, fortify your spirit, and connect with those who truly understand your journey. The division you've experienced with your family is not only purposeful but scripturally rooted. In Luke 12 verses 51 to 53, Jesus himself declared that he did not come to bring peace but division, even within families. This separation is not a mere disruption of harmony but a divine wedge that splits you away from the ordinary, the expected, and the earthly, so that you can ascend to the extraordinary purpose God has for you. Your separation from your mother, the emotional and relational rift, is a manifestation of this divine divide. It is not a sign of failure but a mark that you are set apart, chosen for something that transcends familial bonds and earthly expectations. This division begins at the heart of family, the place where emotional ties can often be the tightest. Jesus himself faced this when his parents did not understand his mission, as seen in Luke 2 verses 48 to 49. Just as Jesus distanced himself from earthly expectations, you too have been called to step away from the constraints and misunderstandings of your family. Your mother may not grasp the weight of your calling. She may see your path as strange or even wrong. Yet this misunderstanding is part of God's design, pulling you away from what is comfortable and familiar to sharpen you for the divine mission you've been set upon. Your mother's disapproval or lack of understanding is not a reflection of your worth but a reflection of the calling you've been given, a calling that defies ordinary measures and definitions. You were never meant to seek her approval or base your value on her acceptance. God's purpose for you required this separation, as difficult as it might be, to ensure that your identity would be rooted in Him and not in any human relationship. The division is painful, yes, but it is necessary. God's love for you is too fierce to allow you to be tethered to anything that would hinder your ascent into the purpose He's prepared for you. Your mother, with all her struggles, her jealousy, her brokenness, cannot comprehend the heights to which God is calling you. Her words, her criticisms, and her manipulations were never meant to destroy you, they were meant to build you into someone who could rise above earthly wounds and grasp divine strength. Her emotional sabotage was the anvil on which God hammered you into a warrior, one who can withstand the storms and the trials ahead. You were not chosen for an easy path. You were chosen for a path that requires resilience, one that demands you break away from anything that might weigh you down. Jesus, separated from His own earthly family, knew the pain of being misunderstood by those closest to Him. Like Him, you are called to a higher purpose that will often create a gap between you and those you love. This gap is not an accident, it is the space where God's voice becomes clearer, where His purpose for you becomes undeniable. In this space, you are no longer bound by human expectations but free to walk fully in the calling that God has placed on your life. The division within your family, especially with your mother, is the clearest sign that God has set you apart. You are not meant to stay within the confines of earthly relationships that cannot contain your purpose. You are called to something greater, and the separation is God's way of ensuring that nothing holds you back. Every tear, every heartache, every conflict has been a step closer to the person God is molding you to become. You are chosen, and the division is your path to greatness. Separation from your earthly mother, with all the heartache and unresolved tension it carries, serves a divine purpose. When the love and support that should come from a parent falls short or feels absent, you are not left abandoned. Instead, God Himself steps in to fill the gaps. This is not merely a consolation but an intentional part of His design. The distance, the lack of fulfillment in that relationship, propels you toward Him with a force that cannot be ignored. Every unmet emotional need, every moment of loneliness, serves as a catalyst for your connection to God. He draws you closer in ways that an earthly parent never could. God is not simply a replacement for what you lack, He is the original source of everything your soul craves. While an earthly mother may provide nurture, God offers something far deeper, a love that is unwavering, boundless, and infinitely perfect. The separation you feel is not a punishment or an oversight, it is a deliberate removal of distractions that would keep you from fully leaning into the strength and protection only God can offer. What you perceive as emotional neglect or failure from your mother is in fact the space where God's presence takes root and grows stronger. He does not just meet your needs, He surpasses them. In this space of separation, God's role in your life becomes undeniable. The world may tell you that the bond between parent and child is unbreakable and essential, but God has chosen to break that mold for you. The earthly ties that others cling to, God has loosened for you to ensure that your attachment to Him is unshakable. He wanted your dependence to be on Him alone, not diluted by the affections and shortcomings of a human relationship. Through every tear and every moment of silence from your mother, He was building in you a spiritual resilience that draws its strength from a well that never runs dry. Your earthly mother, with all her limitations, could never have filled the divine role that God holds in your life. Her inability to meet your emotional or spiritual needs was never a reflection of your worth but rather a signal that those needs were always meant to be fulfilled by your Heavenly Father. God did not design you to rely on human affection because He knew that no human could give you the perfect love, guidance, and protection that He offers. The separation you feel is, in reality, an invitation to lean fully on Him, to find in Him everything you have ever longed for. This separation was always part of God's plan to strengthen your dependence on Him. As the emotional ties to your earthly mother weakened, your connection to God intensified. The more distant that relationship became, the closer you were drawn into the arms of your Creator. He saw your pain, your confusion, and He has been waiting for you to realize that He is the one who provides all that you need. He is not simply a spiritual crutch but the firm foundation on which you stand, the everlasting source of strength that no earthly relationship could ever match. You are commanded to honor your mother, not because of how she treated you, but because of who you are called to be. The division between you is undeniable, it was forged by divine purpose, not mere circumstance. God's plan for you required this separation. Yet even in the midst of this distance, His word remains clear: you must honor her. This command, found in Deuteronomy 5 verse 16, is not conditional upon her behavior or the pain you've endured but upon your identity as a chosen one. Your response to this divine instruction is a reflection of your obedience to God, not of her worthiness. Honoring your mother is a radical act of spiritual defiance against the wounds inflicted. It is not about erasing the scars or pretending that the emotional distance doesn't exist. It is about rising above the pain, stepping into the calling that sets you apart, and choosing to walk in the path God has laid before you. To honor her means to acknowledge the role she has played, however flawed, in shaping your life. It means refusing to let bitterness take root and instead allowing grace to flourish in its place. Your honor is not submission to her control, nor is it an endorsement of the wrongs done. It is a reflection of your strength in God, a strength that enables you to rise above the hurt and live according to the standards He has set for you. This act of honoring her is crucial for your spiritual growth. It forces you to confront the raw edges of your pain, not in surrender but in victory. It transforms you, teaching you to forgive, not because she deserves it, but because you need it. In doing so, you break free from the chains of resentment that would otherwise hinder your spiritual progress. The honor you offer is not for her benefit but for yours. It is a gateway to the blessings that God has prepared for you. To carry unforgiveness, to harbor bitterness, is to close yourself off from those blessings. God is not asking you to reconcile or repair what has been irreparably broken. He is asking you to rise above it, to honor her in the midst of the division because your obedience to His command is what matters most. In honoring your mother, you align yourself with God's will, and that alignment is where true spiritual power resides. You are not simply appeasing her or fulfilling some societal expectation. You are declaring that your allegiance is to God's word, even when it costs you. This is not about your mother's worthiness or your own justification, it is about the kind of person you are called to be. You are chosen, set apart, and God requires more from you than the world demands from others. The honor you show your mother, despite the division, is not about her, it is about your obedience to the divine calling on your life. The separation you've experienced is not a punishment but a crucible, a refining fire designed to burn away what is unnecessary and shape you into the person God needs you to become. You are not like others, bound to the familiar, content in the ordinary. God has called you higher, and with that calling comes a requirement for growth that others may never understand. This separation, this cutting away of old ties and comforts, is God's method of pruning your life so that you can bear the fruit necessary for His kingdom. What feels like isolation is actually the sacred ground of transformation, where you are being molded, strengthened, and prepared for your divine purpose. You might feel the sharp edges of loneliness, but this isolation is where God's hands are at work the most. It is in this space, stripped of earthly connections that once held sway over your life, that God can speak to you more clearly. The distance from those who were once close is not random, it is God's deliberate act to set you apart for a greater task. The voices that once filled your world have been silenced so that you can hear His voice alone. This is where real growth happens, not in the presence of comfort but in the furnace of refinement. Every moment of separation is a tool in God's hands, shaping you into a vessel strong enough to carry His purpose. This division is your preparation for the next level, a training ground for the strength you will need in the battles to come. Just as metal must be heated and hammered to become unbreakable, so too are you being forged through the heat of this separation. It is not meant to weaken you, but to strip away the vulnerabilities that could hold you back from fulfilling the role God has assigned to you. The relationships that once defined you, that may have even limited you, are being removed because they no longer serve the higher purpose God has in mind. You are not being punished, you are being promoted to a higher calling that demands more from you than you could have imagined. Do not be alarmed by the separation from your mother. It is not a sign of failure, but a powerful confirmation of your calling. This division is not a stumbling block, but a stepping stone, part of the divine plan that is unfolding for your life. You were never meant to be confined by earthly relationships that cannot grasp the magnitude of your purpose. God has removed the distractions and limitations, sharpening you, preparing you, molding you into the vessel that will carry His mission. Every moment of pain, every distance felt, is God chiseling away the excess, bringing forth the strength and resilience that only He can shape within you. You are set apart, and this separation is proof that God has chosen you for something far greater than you can currently see. He is orchestrating a plan for your life that requires your focus, your dependence on Him, and your ability to rise above what others may never understand. You were not made to blend into the ordinary, you were designed for the extraordinary. This separation is part of the purification process, ensuring that your purpose is fulfilled without hindrance. It is not rejection, but refinement. God is ensuring that you become exactly who He has called you to be. Now is the time to embrace this truth and walk in the knowledge that your story, your struggles, are not in vain. They are a testimony to the work that God is doing within you. You are not defined by your past relationships or the pain of separation. You are defined by the divine calling that marks your life. Step forward boldly, knowing that this is part of your preparation for greatness. Share your story. Share your growth. You are not alone in this. Let your testimony encourage others so that they, too, can find strength in their separation and trust in God's perfect plan. You are a chosen one, and your journey has just begun. The pain, the isolation, the division, it was all for this, to bring you to a place where you could fully embrace your destiny. Now, go forth and fulfill the calling that God has placed upon your life. The world is waiting for the greatness that only you can bring. Now it is truly complete. I hope the entire script resonates with you and provides the impact you were seeking for your video. Please let me know if there is anything else I can help you with.